Hey there, my friends. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Over the past 40 days of Lent, which we've now completed with our Easter celebration, but Easter tide continues. It's kind of what we do. We celebrate for several weeks after Easter. During the season of Lent, we've been using this book, Prayer 40 Days of Practice by Justin McRoberts, Scott Erickson. You've heard me give that spiel before. And this is kind of an unexpected kind of recap of where we've been, I suppose. So it's a little less formal, that I don't have a script here like I kind of have in the past to make sure we're kind of keeping this all on point. And I don't have a guest today. I'm just wanting to take a few moments to reflect not only on the joy that we have in the ending of something, the beginning of something new, but also to reflect on where we've been as a congregation, as those of us who have been engaging in this, what we've seen. Just a couple of little reflections before we kind of put this whole thing to bed. So the first thing I came to mind as I thought about this process is that 40 days, as sociologists and psychologists will tell us, is a really good time frame in which to create new habits and new patterns. And when we say that we're going to set out to do something, if it's going to be important to us, then we will practice it in a habitual manner, not because trying to do something over and over again is something that we have to do. We are bound to that. But when something's important to us, we want to make it a habit. We want to make it a part of our life and graft it into our normal patterns. We have to kind of put it out there and say, this is going to be something I'm going to do on a regular basis. So creating a habit for 40 days, that's a good timeline to do that in. And for me, as a ministry leader during a busy season of the church here, this has been a really good process, but I've also had to lead it. And so to take some time now on the other end of this, to not be the ministry leader, so to speak, and to just take this on as a practice for myself. So I'm not sure about you. I've always encouraged you, those of you who've engaged in this process, to go back to this later on in the day, take some quiet moments and continue to meditate on this. And I'm going to approach this book from here on out for the next however long, as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, not as a ministry leader. And I'm going to see where it takes me, because it's been really good to hear the reflections of others. And for now, as a pastor, as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, I need this for myself. So as we talked about on Easter Sunday, everybody loves a happy ending, but every ending is an ending, and it gives birth to a new beginning. And for me, I'm engaged in this as a follower of Jesus. That's kind of where I'm going. And it's kind of to bring the whole thing to a close, I really like some of these little interludes. We didn't really talk about the practices in this book, so if you found some benefit to that, I'd certainly commend that to you. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the different practices kind of suggested for each of these sections, certainly give that a look. We focus mainly on the images and the prayer prompt, but there's certainly some good other meat in this book, as I've just discovered as I've started on my own journey. But at the very end, there's this little vignette that says, "It will pass." And I'd like to read this to you because it really fit well about kind of expressing that our practice of prayer is never over. We may get done to it with a season of practice or prayer or Lent or the Easter season, but we continue to walk with Jesus wherever he leads us. So here's what it says. "It will pass. The young woman sat in a wooden chair across from her mentor and grieved. I am so easily distracted. My mind buzzes with noise and I cannot pray. Please help me." Her mentor nodded slowly and smiled, saying, "It will pass. Keep practicing." 1 week later, the young woman sat across from her mentor again. This time sliding slightly lower into the chair, she stared at the empty table. "Nothing works. I sit in silence. I journal. I read the scriptures. Still, my mind is too noisy. I cannot pray. Please help me." Her mentor nodded slowly and smiled, saying, "It will pass. Keep practicing." Many weeks went by, during which the young woman did not visit her mentor. Until one day, she bounded into the room and stood at the table beaming. "You were right. I kept practicing. I sat in silence, I journaled, I read the scriptures, and eventually the busyness of my mind settled like dust, and I could pray. I can pray. Our mentor rose from the table, set her hand on the young woman's shoulder, and smiled. It will pass, she said. Keep practicing. Not much more needs to be said than that. Whatever you're going through, whatever state of mind you're in, whether you feel like it's easier to pray now after these 40 days, or maybe it's more difficult. If your heart and mind is noisy, as mind tends to be right now, or if it's calm and serene and ready to receive what God has coming for you, it will pass. Keep practicing. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and I pray that your practice of prayer will continue far beyond this time, that it will be a habit, and that as you see the people around you and the opportunities to grow with them, that you will see prayer as a practice that can be engaged in all the time with anyone you meet. God's peace to you. Bye now.